In the heart of Los Angeles, behind a row of faded white county vehicles and a loading dock stained by decades of autopsy runoff, stands a building most residents never think about, yet it quietly holds the truths of thousands of deaths. The Los Angeles County Medical Examiner Coroner's Office processes more bodies than any other coroner's facility in America, and for decades it has battled overcrowding, storage failures, and evidence backlogs so severe that outside audits became routine. But according to several former technicians, people who spoke off record, without names, there is another story. One the county has never acknowledged. One that begins not in the active morgue or the autopsy wings, but beneath them, in a basement no one was supposed to enter. A basement sealed in the late 1980s after a failed renovation, forgotten when budgets shifted and leadership changed. For years it sat ignored. A place staff occasionally joked about calling it the cold floor or the hallway of mistakes. But the truth didn't come out until a maintenance crew, responding to complaints about flickering lights and unexplained electrical draw, opened a rusted door that should have been welded shut. What they found didn't appear in any county report. One of them later said, "We thought we were walking into a storage closet, but it felt like stepping into something that had been waiting for us." When the team first descended, they noticed the temperature drop instantly, far colder than the rest of the building. Their flashlights revealed a narrow hallway lined with peeling paint, early 1970s safety posters, and handwritten labels on doors that read like case numbers. These weren't offices. They were compartments. Rooms meant for evidence storage during a time when LA crime skyrocketed. The first room they opened held stacks of water-warped boxes, their seals broken by years of moisture and neglect. Inside were old case jackets, Polaroids, and property tags from homicide victims. Many were still logged in systems that listed them as missing. Another technician said, "It was like everything the coroner's office forgot about had been dumped down there." But the weird part, the part one still don't understand, was that nothing felt untouched. Everything looked rearranged. Maintenance noticed something else. The room felt inhabited. Not by rats or insects, but by the sensation of someone just having stepped out of sight. One man refused to continue downward after hearing a whisper behind him, a whisper saying his name, in a dry, breathless voice. At first, supervisors assumed the workers were exaggerating. Stress, poor ventilation, imagination. But when an auditor asked for photographic documentation of the forgotten area, just to evaluate compliance violations, the office sent a small team of administrative assistants and mortuary aides to film every room. The footage that survives is silent except for the hum of the air handler. The video begins normally, panning shots of corroded shelves, mildewed binders, and broken filing cabinets. But halfway through, the cameraman abruptly stops. His light points down a long corridor painted with numbers that should not have existed. The county had no record of rooms labeled B17 through B23. As the camera zooms in, a shadow crosses the far end of the hallway, smooth, upright, fast, but not distinctly human. The operator swears quietly, the camera shaking as he tries to regain focus. When his flashlight lands on the floor, there are footprints in the dust. Bare footprints, as though someone had walked through minutes earlier. The team left immediately. The next day, the file was quietly pulled from circulation. One member claimed management wasn't angry. They were afraid. Not afraid of ghosts, but of liability. The basement revealed failures the county could not publicly admit. Forgotten evidence meant mishandled cases, misplaced remains, possible wrongful convictions, financial ruin. So the story was buried. The basement door was resealed. And the people who discovered it were told never to reference it again. But months later, one of the original maintenance workers, now retired, reported strange events at home, drawers opening by themselves, footsteps in the hallway at night, and the unmistakable smell of hospital disinfectant filling his bedroom. When asked if he believed something followed him from the basement, he simply said, "I think it woke up, and I think it remembered me." 3 months after the discovery of the forgotten basement, county officials quietly assembled a second team, this time composed of senior investigators, archivists, and a digital compliance officer. Their mission was not to explore, not to assess safety, but to catalog everything. Old evidence boxes. Abandoned property. Any biological samples that legally should have been transferred decades ago. The county needed to know one thing: how bad the damage was. No one wanted the job, but overtime incentives convinced enough staffers to volunteer. On the morning of the second descent, body cameras were issued to every member. Footage from these cameras would later go missing, with only fragments recovered from the corrupted digital archive. What survived is disturbing, not because of what it shows, but because of what it suggests. The team entered just after sunrise. Immediately, their lights flickered, as if the basement was drawing energy from every device. Temperatures dropped to refrigerator levels. Their breath fogged in the air. The lead archivist muttered that it felt like being inside a giant walk-in freezer filled with grief. As they moved deeper, they uncovered proof of long-term evidence neglect: boxes containing murder weapons, sample jars with faded autopsy labels, entire shelves marked with case numbers that had been declared destroyed years earlier. Many containers were cracked open, their contents spilled across the floor as if something or someone had moved through them. One investigator whispered, "It's like someone was searching." In the recovered footage, a mortuary aide lifts an old Polaroid. It shows a man from a 1984 homicide, his face partially obscured as though the camera had caught something behind him. The aide flips the picture over. On the back, in smeared pen, is a date and a name that was not part of the case. Someone else's name. A name belonging to a technician who had died in the coroner's office in 1996. The aide drops the photo. In the video, you hear her say, "This place remembers everyone who's ever been here." From that point on, the footage becomes increasingly unstable. Audio crackles with faint whispers, sometimes saying names, sometimes repeating autopsy codes. Glimpses of movement appear at the edges of the frame, shapes that vanish the moment someone turns. Dust prints on the floor shift between shots, as though a barefoot person is pacing behind the crew. At 10:14 a.m., the team splits into two groups. Group A heads toward the misnumbered rooms. Group B, consisting of two aides and an investigator, continues down a long hallway leading to a sealed metal door marked simply, "Property, Hold." What happens next is the segment county officials would never acknowledge. Group B reaches the door, and the camera catches its condition, dented from the inside, as though something had struck it repeatedly. The investigator forces it open. Inside is a room filled not with evidence, but with personal belongings: wallets, rings, watches, handbags, children's toys, all tagged with case numbers. Items that were supposed to be returned to families. The air becomes so cold the camera lens frosts. The audio picks up a faint, rhythmic tapping, like fingernails on metal. It grows louder, circling the room. The aides freeze. Their breath turns white. Then, the tapping stops. A single object slides across the concrete floor toward them: a hospital bracelet. The tag name matches that of a man who had died unattended in a Skid Row motel in 1991, his case famously delayed during a period of mass coroner backlog. The bracelet lands at the feet of the investigator. His body cam audio captures him whispering, "We need to leave. Now." As they turn to leave, the lights explode in a shower of sparks. Darkness engulfs the room. The camera records footsteps, multiple sets, circling the team. Not human footsteps. Bare, wet, slow. Someone begins calling the investigator's name in a hoarse, broken voice. Not shouting, pleading. The group runs. The footage becomes chaotic, beams of light swinging wildly, boxes crashing, the sound of something heavy dragging across the floor behind them. When they reach the stairwell, a final frame shows a figure at the far end of the hall, tall, rigid, its head tilted at an impossible angle, one hand outstretched as though offering something unseen. The door slams shut. The recording cuts out. The team surface traumatized, refusing to return. The building's administration quietly sealed the basement again, citing electrical hazards and structural instability. Nothing from the cataloging mission was ever entered into official records. Months later, Nighttime staff began reporting strange occurrences. Autopsy drawers opening on their own, body bags shifting, and the sound of someone walking in the stairwell that no longer connected to anything. One investigator claimed that late one night, while reviewing old case files, he saw a barefoot print appear on the floor beside him, fresh, wet, and ice-cold to the touch. Officially, the forgotten basement does not exist. Unofficially, everyone at the coroner's office knows the truth. When you mishandle the dead long enough, eventually they come looking for what they were owed.